Okay, welcome to another episode of Build with Raymond. In this episode, I'm going to show you how I built an AI content writer using Langgraph without going too much into the details of it. So first up, let's take a look at the results of this, right? So this was written to yesterday and was posted on the same day, so yesterday. And right now it's ranking for the keywords it's supposed to rank for. So let's say YC solo founder, you can see that it's at number 5 in position, and YC accepts solo founder more so of a question, it's ranking number 4. And I think yesterday I'm also seeing this on like my mobile. So like when I search for this, you can see that it's pulling it ranking number 1, pulling out snippets from my the featured snippets from my content itself. You can see, right? So this within like 20 hours, so 9 hours ago and 21 hours ago, right? You can see that this was freshly posted and it was being used as a featured snippet on Google already. So this is the kind of like content that I'm looking to write, and a fun fact is that this is fully written using AI with no edits from me, right? So just gonna let you take a look at what this article is talking about. You're sitting there with a groundbreaking startup idea, the technical skills to build it, and the burning ambition to make it happen. But there's one thing that you don't have: a co-founder. As you research YC, one of the most prestigious startup accelerator, you keep running the same nerve-wracking question: would they even consider a solo founder? The short answer, yes, YC does accept solo founders, but there's so much to the story that simply answer suggests. And then it goes deep into it, the truth about YC stance, the solo founder advantage. YC really look for this strategies, right? And you can see that there are links to the various resources all built right in, and you can see it brings you to like even Reddit discussions about like what people talk about, right? I don't have anyone I'd love to share my shares. So this would come to Google as a pretty authoritative article, and naturally would rank as one of the top few when the competition is not very high. And obviously this is just like the first day that it's been ranking. Let's see how it performs. But the gist of it is that the AI content writer, AI content written using AI is pretty promising, right? And we want to see like how this will perform down the road. So I'm going to give you a quick demo on how this engine looked like by getting it to write an article on the ongoing dispute between WordPress and WP Engine. So I'm just going ahead to show you like how I start, how I initialize the engine, right? So I start off with like write an article on WordPress v WP Engine, and the goal is to summarize and give the recent drama. Make sure to link to the sources liberally. So here I have options of passing in URLs if I want to, basically to get it to read certain sources first, right? But the engine is pretty capable of like doing its research by itself. I'll show you examples of that later. So I can pass in discussion threads if necessary to kind of like frame the way it talks, the way it speaks to the users. And so using this, the moment I can run this here, right? And while it runs, I'm going to show you how it has written other articles as well. So over here, I'm going to make use of LangSmith, right, to show you the trace so that you can see like what's the initial instructions and what's the final output, right? So this is an example where I didn't pass in any discussions or content, and I just ask it to write something, right? And I'm even telling the engine that I'm flexible with the title as long as it contains these two words. And as you can see, it's for SEO reasons, right? So it goes about its agent flow, which I'll show you later, like what the flow looks like, and the final output looks like this. So here you go. So with just the instructions, it'd be like Svelte versus SvelteKit, understanding their roles in modern web development. So you have heard about Svelte's growing popularity in the front-end development world, and now there's SvelteKits too, right? What exactly is SvelteKit, and when should you choose it over plain Svelte? And if you are wrestling with this question, you're not alone. Many developers experience confusion about the distinction, with common questions like, I don't understand what SvelteKit is, and I don't see any advantage of SvelteKit rather than the built-in router, right? So it goes about telling you what Svelte is, right? Give you a code example of what a Svelte component looks like, and then you have the full stack framework, right? So I think it does a great job explaining this in case people came from like the Next.js or the Nux world, right? So it is Svelte what Next.js is to do, right? So if you need a server, then use SvelteKit. If you are just using front end only, I use Svelte. So this is a great way to talk about like the difference. And you can see that it talks about what else SvelteKit does and code example of SvelteKit, right? And making the right choice, give you a framework of like when to choose what, and common concerns, course, directory structure, best practice, state management, yada, right? So this is actually a pretty decent article, considering that I literally just asked it to write like Svelte versus SvelteKit or something similar. So it's almost as vague as I can be, right? So that's one example of it. Here's another technical example using using the same agent, right? I'm going to show you what's the starting prompt. So the starting prompt is also very vague. Just say write about suspense and use client. What's the difference in Next.js, right? Again, I told it that I'm flexible with the idea. Title. So let's take a look at what the output looks like. So this looks interesting. So Next.js development, and then should you stick with a simple loading .tsx files, or is suspense the better choice, right? And what's this thing about bundle size when you use client? Oh, interesting, right? I wouldn't think about bundle size when I just think about these two things. So let's dive in, right? What is suspense? So they tell you what React suspense is, gave you a good example of that, and what use client is, right? It's something that's native to Next.js, so it shows you example of that, right? And the difference of when to use each, right? You can see, oh, so this is pretty much the server side, client side, performance implication. Then it tells you about bundle size, the different server versus client components, developer experience and code organizations, right? Best practice, combining both approach, performance optimization tip. So this is a rather decent article, right? And again, it's fully written using AI without like additional input. And so you might be thinking like, hey, can I use this for non technical stuff, right? So here's an example of another topic that I'm pretty interested in on RSI. So again, I gave it 3 discussion threads to start off from, right? Just start some simple exercise for RSIs, right? And going to the output, let's see, right? So I experienced a burning pain, right? So it talks about the real experience that some Reddit users are sharing, right? And understanding RSI, right? So typically develops when you do this. Essential exercises for RSI. So it starts with the exercise, right? There you go. So very specific instructions. What I probably like more is to actually add in image or video over here, so that people can actually understand what is how this exercise should look like, right? Because I might not know where my flexor or extensor is. All right, finger strengthening tips, right? So those are pretty good exercise. Like I can see myself following this. So bend your arm at 90 degrees, and then expanding your chest, hold, return to starting positions, right? So these are like really nice instructions that is easy to read. So if it adds in illustrations, that would be perfect, right? And it talks about creating exercise routine, preventions and maintenance, additional tips for success, when to seek professional help, so on and so forth. So this is great because it's also linking to pretty authoritative resources as well, right? So you can see it writes well for things that are not technical as well, right? Another example, which is the one that you just saw, does YCSF co-founder. So that's the one that's ranking right now. Okay, so maybe let's talk about like, before that, let's take a look at the current run that we just ended. So this is the WordPress versus WP Engine, the one that we just asked it to run. So total run time took about 4 minutes. Sorry, about 2 minutes to run this. And let's take a look at the output. Okay, so dispute explained, shocked by unprecedented initial spark, right? Start off with like cancer to WordPress, nice, right? TechCrunch coverage, so it links to an article, and these are real articles, right? So it's not things that ChatGPT like hallucinated, right? So there you go, very authoritative articles. Then talks about the escalation, the impact on the users, right? Legal battle unfold, the lawsuit, internal turmoil, governance concerns, community response. I love this because it shows you what people are talking about and like real quotes from all these topics. So you can see like, let's take a look at this Reddit thread, copy, paste, and then getting every single one of the users in personal belief involved is, there you go. Yeah, so this is insane. Key concepts include users impact, recommendations. What else should you do, right? So this is pretty good for something that you know, I'm not actually putting a lot of instructions to, right? So coming back to here, let's take a look at why I built this, right? So the reason I built this is that ChatGPT sucks. Like if you literally give the same instructions to ChatGPT, like this is the free version, of course, discounting it, right? The full version will probably read into it, but here's the thing, it's very it's always hallucinating. So like all of these things, you can see it's being vague about it, but yet it looks like it knows what it's talking about, which makes it very dangerous. So I wanted something that has a little bit more journalistic standards to it, right? Being able to reference authoritative sources and building together a story, and putting them all the way together in a way that is factual, right? But at the same time not being boring about it, right? So ChatGPT sucks, right? It's not going to work. Even the Plus is not going to reach the standard. Perplexity, on the other hand, is actually pretty decent about it, right? So when I gave the instructions to Perplexity, you can see it talks about the WordPress conflict, the background of the dispute, legal actions, the ban on access to resources. So it's still very factual, and it's really great at sourcing, right? So you can see it's doing sourcing for all the all the sentences that is using, right? And it actually points you to the source. I love it, right? In fact, I only did this experiment with Perplexity after like I built mine. The thing about Perplexity is that it doesn't actually, it's good if you are the one asking for it, but sometimes it lacks the perspective of like real user. So the benefits that the current engine that is built in is that it incorporates discussion threads and like sentiments from around the internet to kind of like craft your article in a way that speaks directly to the users, right? Because the users are concerned about things like, what's the CEO doing? Why am I embroiled into this as a user, right? And for these changes, I'm like, sometimes I have very specific questions like, what is this going to impact like my performance? What is this going to impact like the scaling aspects of my tech stack, right? So we want to incorporate some of the users' concerns in and address them early, rather than to let like the AI hallucinate ideas or problems, which actually does wonders for SEO, because in a way these are the things that user would search for on the internet too. So so which is why the the products out there are not quite what I want just yet. So that's it. So you might be wondering like, oh, so how do we build this using Langgraph? So let's take a look at this. So this is actually the architecture behind this engine. I'll explain all of this, but first a little bit about Langgraph. So Langgraph is actually a framework for LLMs to do like agents and multi-agent workflow, and basically it allows you to do put together things like let's take a look at the graphs. How to can I graph states? I think they recently updated this. Is this the JavaScript? Okay, concepts, wireline graph. Try and show you like the graph states. Okay, so you can build various things like RAGs and all. Let's see, right? So you can build different nodes with a graph where every node can make independent decision to just like flow through stepwise, or actually it can like look back to itself to perform more like agent-like decisions to whether continue or pass it along to another agent. So Langgraph is it's a way that you can build agents model and workflow with very high level of controls. So one of the things that it does is that you can put together like this graph-like structure where every node does certain things, and you have edge that actually can look around each other. So for my case, it's very simple. It's just a flow through step by step where it'll pass on, it records certain things within the state and pass it on to the next node to process it. I'll show you examples of like how the different nodes communicate with one another. But let me start off with like the overall architecture around it. So when my query first starts, it goes the supervisor to decide like should I start from like this which state should I start from, right? So this actually allows me to pause at any point within the entire research and writing process, and restart from a certain position. So for instance, if like I love the research that is put together, but I hate like how the content is actually stitched up at the end, I can replay the last step, or I can replay the last two steps, or I can change the instructions within at the last two steps to get it to rewrite certain things. So this workflow actually allows me to give a very good control around like how would I want to replace certain things, change certain instructions, and also debug, like look at the different outputs around every node to see where the problem is. So let's talk about what each node does, right? So when I start off with this, it will start off brainstorming like what kind of content from the internet should I read, and what kind of discussion from the internet should I use to steer the voice and anger and the SEO keywords of this article, right? Then from there, there's this content fetcher that fetches and scrape the content from the internet, right? This has some capabilities built in to read certain things that is not so easy to read. So for instance, behind Reddit, LinkedIn, right? It's able to get behind like the bot controls, and also for YouTube videos, right? It's able to read YouTube videos through the transcripts, right? And various other engines are built in here to kind of like read more things off the internet. Then from there, it starts to notate on the discussions over here, like what are some of the key things that is coming out, what are some of the key pain points, some keywords that is being used, and what are people recommending to one another as solutions, and finally synthesizing them together, right? Then from there, there's also the content synthesizers that take all the content from here and does the same, right? Then from there, plan the content structure, and then having a content writer write it. So on the use of LLM, so all these nodes over here uses ChatGPT 4.0 mini to really save the cost to a couple of cents. So in fact, if you take a look at the run here, like each run takes about 3 cents, about on average 3 cents. So it's very cheap, although this is very intensive research, right? However, the content writer actually uses Claude 3.5 Sonnet version 2, right? The reason is that I find it really good at steering and making it more human-like, and in a way that actually reads less like what the ChatGPT usually spit out, right? So this is the general approach. So I'm going to take you through how each notes looks like when we step through one of this. So I'm going to go through how the notes looks like. So as mentioned, we start off with, so I'm going to collapse all this. So I'm using LangSmith here to really debug and show you the flow. It is a great tool and integrates really easily with Langgraph and LangSmith set of toolings and the ecosystem. So let's take a look at content researcher. So for the content researcher, it starts off with like the input, and then you can see it searches for the search term. So it starts off with like what is WordPress engine, and WordPress and WordPress engine and WP engine dispute, right? And it tells you why it's trying to do the searches, and from there it will get the search results from Google. So these are the search results from Google, right? And you can see the latest one, WP engine dispute from TechCrunch, and all of this, right? So what you need to know, right? So these are all about the dispute, and from there you can see it selects certain search results for it to dive into. So what is WordPress engine, this dispute from TechCrunch, MP Group, and The Verge, right? Okay, so from there, so that's the note from here. So the input is the instructions that we gave it, and the output is the URLs and snippets from Google about the topic. Okay, so we are here. Now the next one is discussion researcher. So at the same time, right, running parallel, this is running. So it searches on Reddit for some of this stuff, and same thing at the end, it's showing you what is being selected, right? So don't fall for it, it's disgusting. And then there's this like, looks like it's caught time, and then there's the unilateral decision to cut WP engine off, right? So these are Reddit threads that it's looking to read, right? So it's here. So now it has a list of URLs that it wants to read. So what the content fetcher does is that it will take in the list of it. So right now you can see that the state has updated, right? And then the output looks like this. So for each of this content, it is actually pulling out the web content, and let me see, right? So this is the content from all the different pages, right? So it's just fetching it. Then it goes into the note taker. So this is the what is this? This is the discussion note taker. So the discussions actually goes into each of them, right? And look at what are some of the notes. So for instance, like this one, it talks about the pain, banning the users. Users are adversely affected. Concerns that the conflict is being framed, and perception that WP engines falls into different positions, right? And then, wow, BDFL, benevolent dictator for life. 5 for the futures, GPL, right? And recommendations that they have, right? Right. This is great research material, right? You can see, right? It gets the verbatim, like we talk about one of the things, like, right? Feeling of betrayal and manipulation in business relationship, right? For these futures. So there you go. So it put together the research notes for each of the discussions, right? And then it further synthesizes them after that. So right now it's a huge one, and then over here it synthesizes all of them into a single note. Verbatim, the pain users, right? Jargons, all of these things, recommendations, overview, and the various URLs that's being used over here. Okay. From there, then you have the content synthesizers that reads into each of this content. Then you can see now it's formatted really nicely into a prose form, right? Copying things like links, copying things like images that's interesting, and taking key highlights, links, images, right? So it's kind of like you have your own researcher performing research on all these things and putting together all these research notes for you. Okay, so after that you have your content synthesizer. Then you go into the detailed content planner, which talks about the overview of like how I would like to write this thing, but still pretty much in point form. And then finally the content writer that write it in its full. So let's take a look at probably word counter to just get an idea of like how long this is. Right, so I asked for 1002, right? Hitting about 1002. Okay, there you go. So this is how it looks like from the front to the back. Okay. Gonna show you like how it's implemented in code, right? So this is the workflow, right? You can see basically I am adding, where is it? Yeah, I'm adding the nodes in, right, to the various nodes, and then building the edge around like which one should link to which one, right? And then there's like some conditional edge, right? And each of the nodes looks like this. I'm gonna pull out the nodes. So for instance, like let's say a content planner node would look like this. It will call a function to run certain things and return it as a state update. So there's a global state that is being used, right? So this means that there's a global state. This one. Is it this one? No, sorry. This is the global state, right? This is the global state that is being used, and this actually allows me to store everything and also kind of like debug in the case that I have over summarized on certain nodes in the synthesizer, and I want something raw in like let's say 2 or 3 steps back. What I can do is that I can still fetch the content from those space and actually replay them. So I'm going to show you like how this looks like. So this is the initial config from the user, right? And then each of the node actually produces its own output and it doesn't actually pass it along, but it's made available to all the other nodes subsequently. This means that at any point in time in later nodes, I can reference any material from here. So the current approach when you visit Langgraph materials is that they will tell you to use message, right? A chain of message. I'm going to show you example. Messages. Maybe agentic. Messages. Right, so a lot of the current agent workflow is using like just a single message. It's very similar to the architecture of ChatGPT's message conversations, right? The problem with this approach is that it becomes very noisy, like the state history, and every problem become a needle in the haystack problem. So what having like a state like that does is that I can selectively pull out materials to add into the conversations to the LLM and actually save on a lot of costs, because when I execute something at the last stage here, I do not need to include every materials that's being used here. I can pick out things like from the synthesized nodes and just use them, or I can choose to say, okay, I skip past the synthesizer and go directly to the notes, right? So this actually allows me to customize like what kind of messages goes into the LLM to pick out on to not make the problem such a big problem like a needle in a haystack problem. What this allows you to do is that it would have more control over the system message. So your system message, because it's not being crowded out by all this noise and content, it's the engine is able to respect this system message a lot more, and so you have finer controls over the voice as well. All right, so this is roughly how the architecture looks like. Okay, let me see if I have anything else to add. So yes, LangSmith is probably your best tool when working with LLM, especially with Langgraph, because it works really well together. And you have seen how I use LangSmith throughout. So the next step from here is that you can see there are still some shortcomings to this content writer. The first thing is like it's still not adding in multimedia very well, right? So images and videos are not being inserted. This is great to kind of like break up the flow of like this huge chunks of text. The next thing is also brand and call to action alignment. So right now, let's say when I'm writing this article on does YC accept solo founder, it's not talking about let's say WISP at all, right? Brand or content or call to action alignment will be like, oh, as a solo founder, you want to show more traction. You want to be able to show that you are able to get people from upper funnel. Have you got a blog? Have you considered using WISP to kind of like power your engine, right? To make sure that you can scale, right? Or we can have the call to action is like, oh, YC also wants to show that you can go beyond a single person work. So when you hire a writer and hire a developer and they're not working together, perhaps like a headless CMS helps you along the way, right? So there's no call to action alignment right now. It's probably one more node after the written content, right? At the end, there might be some fine-tuned instructions that I want to give certain steps to. So let's say instructions should be made available on this one or made available on this one. I want to just add it in as additional instructions. And finally, right, right now it's just what I used to write. Have already produced quite a few articles using this content engine, right? If people are interested, I can consider getting a preview copy out there for people. But let me know what kind of format. If you're interested in this, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, that is it, right? This is a good high-level overview of how we can build something like this. It also gives you a demo of like what the engine looks like and showing you some of the content that it has created. And finally, like stepping through some of the states to show you like if you were to do this, roughly what you can like put together with what you can use to put together with. With that, I think it's been 30 plus minutes. Thanks for watching this, and I hope to see you in the next one. If you are excited about this this engine, right, write to me and let me know. I'll see you.